Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a climb up to number 11 in the world on the Pokemon Go leaderboards, using a powerful mythical Pokemon in the Master League. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Crawler, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, the team Crawler used to hit number 11 worldwide is as follows: Dialga Origin on the lead, Yveltal as the save switch with Oblivion Wing and Focus Blast, and as the closer, the ever-powerful Zarude. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at his climb to number 11 globally. Picking up a bad lead in the first match, Dialga into Rhyperior. We see the save switch into Yveltal. Opponent is going to respond with a Primarina. Primarina is running Charm, and these Charms are hitting for big super effective damage onto Yveltal. Yveltal is going to land the Oblivion Wing. Primarina tries for the farm down, but they are unsuccessful. Yveltal able to make it to a second Oblivion Wing and force a shield from the Charmer. And baiting out the Charmer should hopefully free up Zarude in the endgame. In comes Dialga. Dialga knows there's a Rhyperior that's going to meet it, so there's no point in ever shielding. Instead, Dialga is going to tank the move and farm all the way down. In comes Zarude. Rhyperior staying in this matchup, and if they're staying in, the hope is that they're going to be weak in the back. We will see the shield from Zarude. In the back is Kyogre, and Zarude just core breaks this team to shreds once the Charmer is out of the way. Power Whip connects. That does massive damage. Kyogre is going to make the last second surf, and Zarude just does not care, as this game is absolutely over. Getting the Vine Whip down of Kyogre. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, Dialga, same lead as last game against Rhyperior. The save switch to Yveltal. Rhyperior going to stay in and build up to the Rock Wrecker. Rock Wrecker does not KO, but it does a ton of damage. No shields, calls the bait. Unfortunately, the 50% attack drop from the Breaking Swipe does apply, as now the opponent is going to bring their own Yveltal in. And in the mirror, if you're debuffed, these Oblivion Wings do not do the damage that you're hoping they would. Opponent is going to land the Oblivion Wing, going to try for the Focus Blast, and gets there. Keep in mind, this is a debuffed Focus Blast. Focus Blast to Yveltal is able to pick up the knockout. So that is an absolutely massive turn of events. And the interesting choice to forego Dark Pulse pays off in a big way in this match number 2. And now it's Dialga versus Dialga, and the Rhyperior is stuck going up against Zarude. And Zarude absolutely loves this matchup. Zarude unleashing the Power Whip. Power Whip is going to be shielded, as the opponent knows Rhyperior is their only hope of defeating this Dialga. The shield from Zarude, as Rhyperior is going to go for the Rock Wrecker. Zarude is going to get a full farm down, and then you can just fire off the Dark Pulse, either grab the final shield, or if it lands, you can just farm them down after with the Dialga. The opponent realizes there's no longer a win con, so they will concede the match. Great lead and swap in the next match, as the opponent's Duskmane is met with Zarude. Yveltal is by far the stronger counter into the Duskmane, so the battler here must be making the read that this is an attempt at a bait out, and that Yveltal will be strong in the endgame. The opponent threw Outrage, so they're going to be on the Outrage Ironhead moveset. I know some people do run it. To me, I just really can't ever see a reason for forgoing Sunsteel Strike, as this is just such an incredibly powerful move. Zarude loses the CMP tie, fully undercharges, but it will still KO. Back in comes Zygarde. Zygarde going to look for a massive farm down here. Zarude is going to be firing off the Power Whip. Giving up this farm is a little awkward, so we are going to see a switch into Dialga. And their final Pokemon is revealed to be Landorus. So that is unfortunate there, as bringing in Yveltal into the safe switch of the Duskmane actually would have ended up being the better play overall. But at the time, you kind of have to make a call based on incomplete information. We're going to see Landorus taking quite a lot of damage as it gets farmed down. You can just bring in Yveltal, and as long as you correctly shield a Stone Edge, you should just be in a completely won position. In comes Yveltal, but here's the thing, Landorus love to bait. We are going to see the shield, and it's the bait from the opponent, and now they're going to be able to make a Stone Edge. A catch is needed, and there it is, the back-breaking catch. Opponent tries for the Stone Edge. It's not going to land on its intended target. Back in comes Zygarde. The only way Zygarde has a chance is if they have Outrage, and they do. They do have Outrage. Yveltal now going to go for the harder hitting Focus Blast. Focus Blast into the Zygarde is going to land. Yveltal going to try for the Sucker Punch farm down and gets it. And there's no way Landorus is making a move. That's getting Sucker Punch down as well. And that game will end in victory. Hopping into the next match, Dialga versus Yveltal. This matchup is pretty uncomfortable. As the Dialga, you typically have to end up double shielding if you want to try and win the matchup, as Yveltal can do pretty well in those lower shielding scenarios. Yveltal has farmed up quite a lot of energy here. Dialga with a call to make, going to commit the shield, and that proves to be a good one, as that was the focus blast from the Yveltal. So Dialga down a shield, in comes Necrozma. We're going to see the pivot into Yveltal. Oh, and this is just game over. This is just game over. Yveltal pivot, baits out the Kyogre, and my goodness, Zarude is going to have an absolute field day. The opponent shielding the Kyogre, which is a pretty big surprise there. I mean, yeah, you just never have to shield this as Yveltal. Opponent actually ends up full sending there to get rid of Yveltal, but this is just a completely one game. Going to overfarm here, fire off the Ironhead. Ironhead will be able to secure the knockout, and Duskmane is going to have a truly terrible day going up against the Zarude, as the opponent actually used the final shield on the Kyogre, trying to protect the Kyogre, but they're going to get no value out of the Kyogre whatsoever, as there's a Zarude on the field. Zarude is going to launch the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse is going to connect, not going to be enough to knock out, but at that point, you could go for a very aggressive Vine Whip farm down, and the opponent will resign the match. Dialga versus a Purified Dragonite. Good lead for the Dialga. If the opponent is staying in, then they're core broken here. I mean, Dialga, superpower would do a ton of damage, so we are going to see the shield. There's the superpower from the Dragonite and the switch out to Rhyperior, and that will swiftly be answered with the Zarude. Zarude easily going to no shield here, as Rock Wrecker not going to be a particular problem. Zarude very comfortably withstanding that damage, and look at the Vine Whips. The Vine Whips just dealing so much damage to the opponent. Full sending the Power Whip, and that is going to be shielded. Rhyperior firing off some energy. Zarude more than happy to let this go. It is just going to be the breaking swipe. It will not KO, and Zarude is going to fire off the Power Whip right before it gets farmed down. The Power Whip is going to connect. Opponent just going to look for farm with the Dragonite, but they get almost no farm. There's quite a bit of energy here on the Dialga already, so I like the play to go in with the Yveltal, as this way you have energy on the Dialga and the Yveltal, so you have options depending on what they have in the back, and it's going to be Dawnwings, and look at the sucker punches. Dawnwings in shambles, and that catch was just filthy. Opponent made the Moongeist. Crawler said not today, getting that catch, and there's just so much energy available on the Yveltal. Yveltal lands the Oblivion Wing and takes the win. Hopping into the next match, Dialga leading into Meloetta. This is a dominant lead for Dialga. Opponent is going to save switch into their own Yveltal, and considering what's in back, this poor Meloetta is about to have a truly terrible day. This is only a Dark Pulse, but we are still going to see the shield from Dialga. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see an attempted catch, maybe onto own Yveltal as they make it to the Oblivion Wing here, as that would be a really nice play pattern, and I haven't watched these battles before. That's just, in my view, the correct way to play it, because this way, I mean, the timers are very decent, but you get to bank energy on your Dialga, and this is going to set up a 6 Sucker Punch farm down. We will see the shield as the opponent is going to fire off energy. They bring in Meloetta. Meloetta can run Thunderbolt. That's typically the moveset that people are running to try and give it a bit of play into Yveltal, but it's still very uncomfortable. Yveltal is going to be firing off the Oblivion Wing. Oblivion Wing is going to connect, and the opponent has lost almost their entire Meloetta. Meloetta, there's the Thunderbolt. It will pick up the knockout. In comes Dialga. Dialga gets some very nice farm, and Dialga up this much energy just can't lose at this point, basically. The opponent needs a catch to have a chance, but this is why Dialga is just way too deadly. There's the attempted catch. They do not get it, so the opponent actually running the exact same backline there. But, unfortunately, hard losing the lead like that just put them in a miserable spot as Dialga makes the Roar of Time, followed by the Ironhead, and the opponent is getting KO'd without even seeing that Zarude. Very neutral lead in the next match, Dialga into the Dawnwings. You do have 2 better responses in the back, so we will see the save switch into Yveltal. And if that is the best response to a Dark-type save swap, then the opponent has honestly not done a great job of protecting their Dawnwings from Darks. Palkia farming up a ton of energy. We should see the no shield here from Yveltal, as the opponent is going to fire off the Aqua Tail. And at this point, if you want to, you can potentially try and play for the second shield or swap. And honestly, I don't mind this play, just because if you win switch, of course, you're going to be in a terrific spot. And even if you don't, this is going to set up Dialga energy. Opponent is going to aggressively switch into Landorus. They give up switch advantage. Landorus going to be answered with the Zarude, and Zarude does a great job at shutting down this Pokemon. Zarude going to launch the Power Whip. Power Whip is going to do quite a lot of damage to the Landorus. Not going to be lethal, but will get them into the red. Zarude looking for the farm down, but the Landorus surviving on 1 HP. Zarude with the no shield, as Landorus is going to pick up the knockout with the Stone Edge. Back in comes the Dialga, and Dialga up energy is going to do terrific in this endgame. Opponent is going to switch into Palkia. They try for a catch. Palkia makes a move, but this is not a Spatial Rend. This is only an Aqua Tail, and this is game over for the opponent. They realize it, and they're going to resign the match before they get hit with the Roar of Time. Dialga versus Landorus, bad lead. It's going to be Yveltal time. Yveltal going to be met with Xerneas. Xerneas, a very good Pokemon to bait out. This team is pretty weak to Xerneas, so seeing Fairy types is going to be very difficult for this team, but we'll see how he likes to play it out. We are going to see a shield, as the Xerneas has no reason to bait with the close combat. They're just going to be full sending here. And after landing the Oblivion Wing, the Sucker Punches do get Xerneas quite low. That's the very scary thing about Yveltal and why it is top meta, is it's really, really difficult to actually have a genuinely terrible matchup for Yveltal. Here the opponent's actually going to pivot out. They save the Xerneas. They bring back in the Landorus. Landorus now going to be aligned onto Zarude. Zarude absorbing the Stone Edge damage and will look to fire off the Power Whip right away. Again, this is non-lethal. Opponent can survive this. They are going to let that through. Zarude would love the farm down, but that Landorus matchup appears to be very, very consistent, as Landorus does make the Stone Edge and secures the knockout. More energy for Yveltal. Opponent going to bring in Rhyperior. Oh boy. Rhyperior might think that they can survive a Dark Pulse, but this is not a Dark Pulse. Focus Blast, that's a one-hit KO. Back in comes the Xerneas, and the opponent will concede the match. We've got a problem Pokemon on the lead, and its name is Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu has a pretty dominant 2-shield win versus Dialga Origin, and of course it's going to completely shut down Zarude, and it's also very awkward for Yveltal. Yveltal technically wins all evens, but that is with a Nature's Madness landing, and while the Tapu Bulu can never farm down afterwards, that removes a lot of the HP that you need for the rest of the game. So, if you're Dialga, ideally you want to try not to play the 2-shield here, as the 2-shield is going to leave you in a really awkward spot. So, Dialga is going to be able to force the second shield. We're going to see a switch out into Yveltal, and I like that. Save the shields, you know you can tank one, reset the debuff on the Dialga. Opponent now going to bring in their own Yveltal and just look for a farm down. You're only getting to 1, so I like going for the Focus Blast, as Focus Blast will be doing more damage overall. Focus Blast is going to land. That damage is significant. Now, I guess you kind of have to bring in the Dialga here. Dialga will be able to get a little bit of damage, but no, the Dragon Breath didn't even go through. Dialga is going to no shield. It is going to be the Dark Pulse. We're now going to see the switch to Zarude. Zarude has to protect itself from the Oblivion Wing. Zarude needs an energy head start, and you have to hope that it's going to be Rhyperior in the back. Opponent brings in the Tapu Bulu, but they're behind on energy. They get outpaced. The Power Whip is reached. It does not KO, however, and that means that a Nature's Madness will land. At this point, you're basically just praying that it's Rhyperior. We're going to see a farm down from the Zarude. Is it going to be the Rhyperior? Can we see the Wincon emerge? People love that pairing. In comes Yveltal. Yveltal gets farmed down. It's Rhyperior. Let's go. Tapu Bulu Rhyperior core is an amazing one. Crawler playing to the Wincon that it was the Rhyperior. That gets fully one shot, and that is a good game. Hopping into what I believe is the final matchup here, Dialga versus Yveltal, and we've seen this matchup play out quite a few times. Dialga is going to strike first with the Iron Head. Yveltal does not have to shield this if they don't want to, but a lot of them do like to preserve health because look at the damage from the Sucker Punches. Sucker Punch is an unbelievably powerful move. Yveltal does win the ones here, straight Dark Pulse, but Crawler says not today. The perfectly timed switch out, catching the Dark Pulse onto Yveltal, and Yveltal is going to be answered with Xerneas. Xerneas, a difficult Pokemon to face as it's able to outpace the Yveltal. Yveltal is going to shield up the Moonblast and look to farm. Firing off this Oblivion Wing, should be able to make another Oblivion Wing here, I believe right before Xerneas gets to its move, but no, Xerneas ends up going for the Close Combat. Close Combat will hit for neutral damage here, but it will not KO, banks the move, switches in the Zarude, and Zarude just cannot get the farm down. Xerneas barely clinging to life, making the Close Combat, and that damage will leave a mark. In comes Landorus. Landorus is going to be met with the Power Whip. While this is non-lethal, it does do quite a lot of damage. Landorus chooses to let it through. Landorus actually makes a bit of a misplay there. They let a second Power Whip be reached. This Power Whip is going to be shielded. The Landorus just going to double up here. And now they have a Sandsear Storm ready to go. I think you have to bring in Yveltal just to force their energy because you have a move on Yveltal. So once they see it, they have to throw instantly here. There it is. Bring in Yveltal, force the energy, and just try and sweep with the Dialga. In comes the Dialga. Opponent switches into Yveltal. Yveltal is energy dry. It gets farmed down, and there's just too much energy available on this Dialga. Landorus is in farm range. For the Xerneas, you can just throw the Iron Head. In comes the Xerneas. Not going to take any chances here. Iron Head KOs, and the opponent will concede the match. Overall, big congratulations to Crawler, as hitting number 11 in the world on the global leaderboards is a very impressive feat, and all the while doing it with a team that is extremely weak to fairy types. But we saw time and time again that even if a team has a weakness, if you're able to have a strategy for how to play around it and you're able to see your win cons throughout the course of the matches, having a weakness on a team is not the end of the world, and it can be very, very playable. This, of course, is a moment where it had me checking my Zarude IVs. I believe I did get a slightly better Zarude the second time around. My second Zarude ended up being a 14, 14, 12, so pretty close to what this battler was using. So that is one encouraging thing as well. It's just the fact that this battler, I mean, they obviously have the Shundo of Yveltal, which is an enormous flex, but their Zarude isn't the greatest ever, and they were still able to hit number 11 globally with it. So big congratulations to them, and thank you for sending in those battles. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.